Hey, my voice cracked when I said it. My brother Tyler barely looked up. Hey, we won. Did you see my last shot? My dad shifted in his recliner, but didn't bother to turn around. Mom poked her head out from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Oh, you're back. Did you grab any of those cookies they set out? I hope you brought some for your brother. He worked hard tonight. I opened my mouth to tell her about the award. The scholarship. The tiny step closer to a college I might actually afford. But the words died when Tyler hooted at his phone, replaying the goal again. I went to my room instead. It was the only place I could still claim as my own, even if the walls were so thin, I could hear Tyler's game replays well past midnight. I unrolled the certificate on my desk, smoothing out the crease I'd left in the gold foil. Congratulations, Leora Hastings, for outstanding academic achievement. I whispered it to myself because no one else would. A sudden ping lit up my cracked phone screen. It was a local reporter I'd met at the ceremony. She'd taken a photo, asked for a quote, something about bright local youth overcoming odds. I'd laughed when she asked, odds? Try family. Try being invisible in your own home. The message was simple. Running your story tomorrow. You'll be on the morning segment. Congrats again, Leora. Asterisk. I stared at the screen for a long time, the blue glow painting my face in a shade that made me feel like I belonged to another world, one where my name mattered. I didn't know then that a 2-minute news segment would be the match to everything I'd spent my life trying to keep neat and quiet. Because when my parents turned on that TV the next morning, they didn't just see my name. They saw the lie they'd told themselves for 17 years, that loving Tyler enough could make up for ignoring me. But that was tomorrow's problem. Tonight, I curled up on my creaky twin bed, certificate pressed flat under my pillow like a secret. I closed my eyes and tried to believe that maybe tomorrow, when my name flashed across that TV screen, they'd see me. Really see me. Maybe for once I wouldn't have to be small to be loved. I didn't know if I believed it. But hope is stubborn. And so am I. .. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow, I have a special story for you. Asterisk. Asterisk. .. Would you like me to continue with part 2 when you're ready? Of course. Here's part 1 asterisk of your dramatic first-person narrative for YouTube, based on your detailed instructions. It's set in a contemporary small-town USA environment and written in a deeply immersive, emotional style. #, my parents skipped my award ceremony for my brother's game, then saw me on the news. I used to believe that if you did everything right, if you were polite, diligent, invisible when needed, and useful when asked, love would come naturally. That belief died the night of my award ceremony. The night my name should have meant something more than an afterthought. My name is Leora Hastings. I'm 17, and I swear I can still hear the echo of my principal's voice in the town hall auditorium when he called my name. It sounded almost too big for my body. I stood there on that wide wooden stage, holding my breath as I scanned the rows of folding chairs. I knew exactly where my parents were supposed to be. Row B, seats 4 and 5, the ones I'd reserved weeks ago with my last $10. But the seats were empty. The bright lights stung my eyes. I squinted so hard I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd be standing in the back, waving. Maybe they'd be late, but they'd made it. Maybe my little brother's championship soccer game had ended early, and they'd driven straight here, half-muddy cleats, Gatorade-stained shirt, all of it. But the lights didn't hide the truth for long. I knew they weren't coming. I held my certificate so tightly that the gold foil edge dug into my palm. Somewhere near the front row, Mrs. Taylor, my chemistry teacher, gave me a sympathetic smile. I hated that smile. It was the same smile people gave stray dogs they didn't want to take home. When the ceremony ended, my classmates spilled into the hall, arms draped over each other's shoulders, parents snapping photos under the ugly, flickering ceiling lights. I stayed back on the stage, pretending to look for something in my bag so no one would ask if I needed a ride home. I did. I always did. By the time I stepped into the chilly night, most cars had already left the lot. A A few stray wrappers tumbled across the asphalt like lost confetti from a party I was never invited to. I tugged my denim jacket tighter, the award certificate rolled up in my fist, and started walking. Our house wasn't far, just under 2 miles, but every step felt like a betrayal I was forced to deliver personally. Look what you missed. Look at what I did without you. Look at me. I made it home just as the porch light flickered on. Through the living room window, I saw my dad on the recliner, a beer balanced on his gut, eyes locked on the sports channel. Mom was in the kitchen, scraping leftover lasagna into Tupperware. And my brother, my golden child brother, sat on the floor, still in his muddy cleats, replaying his final goal on his phone like it was the moon landing. I didn't even bother to step inside right away. I stood there, my breath fogging the glass, watching them watch him, watching myself fade out of the frame, like I'd been doing my whole life. When I finally opened the door, the only thing that greeted me was the faint creak of the hinges. "No, how'd it go, Lo?" "No, we're so proud." Just the hum of the fridge and the static buzz of the game highlights. My parents skipped my award ceremony for my brother's game, then saw me on the news. I woke up to the sound of the TV. It was rare for my dad to be up before 7, unless he hadn't actually gone to bed yet. I could hear his voice mixing with the crackle of the old box set in the living room, the same one he'd sworn he'd replace when Tyler got his soccer scholarship. The carpet under my feet felt colder than usual when I slipped out of bed, the early spring air still lingering like an uninvited ghost. For a moment, I just stood by my bedroom door, ear pressed against the chipped wood. I could hear my name, muffled but unmistakable. Asterisk, Leora Hastings, the bright local student awarded the Thompson Scholars Grant. The reporter's voice was sugary sweet, her words clinging to the stale air like frosting I wasn't allowed to eat. I didn't open the door right away. Instead, I watched my reflection in the dusty mirror across from my dresser. My hair was a mess, pillow-creased and knotted at the ends. My eyes looked bigger than they should have, too awake for the hour. Would they care? Would they rush in here, grab me by the shoulders, and say how proud they were, how sorry they were for missing it? Or would they do what they always did, pretend they didn't hear the truth if it didn't fit the story they'd already decided to tell? I didn't wait for the answer. I tugged my old hoodie over my head, the one I'd bought at the thrift shop 3 years ago, with coins I'd collected from the couch cushions. I slipped out, each floorboard betraying me with its whining squeak. The living room smelled like stale beer and the sour tang of last night's dinner. My dad sat forward in the recliner, elbows digging into his knees, eyes bloodshot but locked on the TV like it was the only thing keeping him from dissolving into the stained cushions. Mom hovered in the kitchen doorway, dish towel twisted tight in her hands. She didn't look at me, even when I stepped into her line of sight. She just kept staring at the TV, her jaw working as if she were chewing her own tongue to keep from speaking. On screen, there I was, standing on that stage, certificate trembling in my hands. The camera caught me blinking too much, my smile half cracked. I didn't look like the shining scholar they painted me as. I looked like what I was, a kid who'd given up waiting for her parents to show up. When the segment ended, the news anchor gave that polite nod they always give before they pivot to the weather or some dog rescue story. The room fell silent except for the ticking of the wall clock. Dad didn't turn to me, he just leaned back and let out a snort. "Guess you're famous now, huh?" His voice was rough, not with pride, but with something that tasted like sour milk on my tongue. Bitterness. Mom finally looked at me then. Her eyes were glassy, like she'd been crying. But her mouth, when it opened, didn't say what I wanted to hear. "You didn't tell us they'd put you on the news." I felt my hands curl into fists at my sides. "You weren't there to tell." Tyler came bounding down the stairs then, soccer bag slung over his shoulder, cleats clacking like tiny hammers against the hardwood. He didn't even glance at the TV. "Dad! You said you'd drive me early today. Coach wants to run extra drills." Dad grunted, already pushing himself up from the recliner. He brushed past me like I was furniture that needed moving. Mom turned back to the kitchen sink, scrubbing at a plate that had probably been clean for hours. "No, we're proud of you." "No, sorry we missed it." "No, congratulations." Just like that, my moment was over. I wanted to scream, I wanted to shatter the TV, tear the certificate in half, run out into the street and yell my name until the whole damn neighborhood knew I existed. But I didn't. Instead, I slipped back into my room, the door clicking shut behind me with a finality that felt like a coffin lid. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the faded blue carpet. For a second, I thought I might cry, but the tears wouldn't come. They never did when I needed them to. Instead, a strange calm settled over me, a cold, simmering certainty that I couldn't stay small anymore. If they weren't going to see me, I'd make sure someone else did. That afternoon, I skipped my usual study period and went to the guidance counselor's office. Mrs. Patel, no relation to anyone I'd ever met, had these kind eyes behind thick glasses, but she never pushed. She let me talk, and I needed that more than air. I told her everything: the empty seats, the TV segment, the way the walls of my house seemed to breathe only for my brother. She listened, nodding, scribbling notes in her floral notepad. When I finished, she pushed a brochure across her cluttered desk. It was for an internship program, summer journalism at the local news station, the same station that had aired my segment. They already know your name, Leora. You should apply. Sometimes the best way to be seen is to stop waiting for someone to look and make them. Her words lodged themselves in my ribs like a splinter. I didn't tell my parents about the application. I stayed up nights drafting the essay, typing so quietly I could hear my heartbeat echo off the cheap drywall. I didn't even tell them when I got the acceptance letter, or when I bought a second-hand blazer from the thrift store so I'd look the part. The first day of the internship was a muggy Tuesday. I remember because my hair stuck to the back of my neck like seaweed, and I kept tugging at my sleeves so no one would see the sweat stains. When I walked into the station, the world felt bigger than it ever had. The hum of cameras, the smell of burnt coffee and printer ink, it was chaotic, alive. I wasn't just Leora Hastings, the forgotten daughter. I was a name on a list, a byline waiting to happen. The first week was mostly grunt work, fetching coffee, transcribing interviews, fact-checking scripts that no one would read twice. But I didn't care. Every sticky note I filed, every stale donut I brought to an editor's desk felt like a brick I was laying on my own road out. And then one afternoon, as I was balancing a tray of coffees, I overheard two producers arguing in the hallway. They were short one junior reporter for the Weekend Live segment, a community piece about local students doing big things. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard it made my breath hitch. I didn't think. I just stepped forward, voice trembling but clear. I can do it. They turned to me like they'd forgotten I was there. One of them, a grizzled guy with nicotine fingers and a permanent squint, raised an eyebrow. You? You're the intern. I know. But I know the town. I know the kids. I can write it. I'll stay all night if I have to. He studied me for a moment, lips twitching like he might laugh. But he didn't. He just shrugged. Fine, don't screw it up. I didn't. That weekend, my name flashed across the lower third of the screen. Leora Hastings, junior correspondent. The segment was small, 2.5 minutes about local teens starting a community garden. But it was mine. My voice. My questions. My words. When I got home that night, I found Mom at the kitchen table. Tyler's dirty socks piled on the chair beside her. Dad was passed out on the couch, snoring so loud it rattled the picture frames. Mom looked up when I walked in, grocery bag dangling from her wrist. You were gone all day. Where were you? I wanted to tell her. I wanted to drop the bag, pull her into the living room, point at the TV, rewind the recording and shove my name in her face. But I didn't, because I knew it wouldn't matter. Not yet. So instead, I just smiled. Small, secret, nowhere. But inside, I was somewhere. Somewhere new. Somewhere that didn't need her permission to exist. And for the first time in my life, I felt like maybe I was done asking to be seen. Maybe it was time to make them watch whether they wanted to or not. Little did I know, I was about to get my chance. And it would come at a cost I couldn't yet imagine. It's strange. The way a single choice can divide your life so cleanly, you'll spend years tracing your fingers over the seam, wondering who you were before you made it. That night, I lay on my bed long after everyone else was asleep, staring at the glow of my phone. The news clip from the community garden segment looped silently, my name pinned in white letters across the bottom corner like a tiny badge of proof. Leora Hastings, junior correspondent. I played it over and over until my battery gasped its last red warning. When the screen finally went black, it left behind this echo in my chest, a thunderous hush that felt like standing on the edge of something I couldn't yet see. In the morning, the news station posted the clip on their socials. I didn't even realize until I got a ping, then another, and suddenly my phone was alive with tiny digital confetti. Kids from school I barely talked to reposted it with, "Look at Leora. Didn't know she was doing all this." My old lab partner from bio messaged me, "Yo, you're famous now?" Little emojis, claps, a stray asterisk, "Proudo," from a girl I'd sat next to once on the bus but never actually hung out with. It was nothing. And yet, it was everything. My parents didn't mention it. Not a word. It was like they'd built an invisible wall around our living room TV. Anything that made me real, they just tuned out. And Tyler? He didn't even glance up from his phone when I walked past him in the hallway that morning. He was still basking in the glow of his weekend championship. I half expected him to trip on the medals he liked to leave lying around like glitter bombs for anyone who dared forget who the real star was. At school, it was different. Kids who'd never looked twice at me suddenly knew my name. Some teachers, too. Mr. Harkins, the history teacher who never got my name right, actually stopped me by the lockers. "Saw your piece," he said, thumbing through his battered grade book. "Good work, Hastings." The hallway felt brighter for a second, the buzzing fluorescence less harsh. I carried that light into the newsroom every afternoon after school, where my name was spelled right on every sticky note, every script draft, every email CC'd to a producer who probably didn't know how to pronounce it but tried anyway. I started sleeping less, but I didn't care. I'd trade sleep for a shot at being seen any day. Weekends disappeared into frantic interviews, half-cold coffees, and endless rewrites that made my fingers ache. I learned how to set up a tripod, adjust the mic so it wouldn't pick up the hum of the vending machine. I learned which camera guys would let you see your raw footage, and which ones would talk over your stand-ups because they didn't think an intern's voice mattered. I didn't care. I kept showing up. I kept making them say my name. At home, the distance grew like mold in the corners of our kitchen, slow, silent, hard to scrub out. My parents would ask if I'd seen Tyler's big goal on TV. I'd nod, even though I hadn't. Tyler would grunt in my direction sometimes. "You staying for dinner, or whatever?" Most nights, I didn't. I'd swing by the newsroom for a quick update and stay until they switched off the last hallway lights. One night, late, I stayed behind to help Nora, one of the senior producers, rewrite an interview that had gone off the rails. She was a legend in our tiny local station, sharp-tongued chain smoker, but she'd built her career from dirt. I liked her because she saw through everyone's bullshit, including mine. When we finished, I stood in the break room doorway, half hoping she'd tell me to go home. Instead, she squinted at me through the haze of her half-burnt cigarette. "You're good, kid. You want more? Take more." More? What? Stories. Segments. People underestimate what happens when you show up when they don't. Keep showing up. I rode that high for weeks. The next big break came by accident. A fire had gutted an old abandoned warehouse near the train yard. Arson, maybe. No one knew. I was supposed to be helping with fact-checking, but the staff reporter was late and the night editor was panicking. So I grabbed a camera, asked 100 questions I barely knew how to word, and when I came back, Nora didn't just air the footage. She let me do the stand-up. When it aired, my face filled the screen for nearly 4 minutes. It wasn't polished. My hair was a mess, my voice cracked twice. But it was mine. That's when the calls started coming. Not just from kids at school or the local Facebook mom groups, but real calls. A community leader wanted to know if I'd cover their charity drive. A local business asked if they could sponsor a short segment. It wasn't big money, not yet. But it was attention. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was stealing it. I'd earned it. Of course, my family found out eventually. Not from me, never from me, but from whispers, from neighbors, from seeing my face flicker across the TV while Tyler pouted because his game highlight got bumped for the warehouse story. Dad called me into the kitchen one evening, the air heavy with the burnt smell of his overcooked pork chops. He didn't offer me a seat. "You think you're better than this family now?" It hit so fast I almost laughed. "What?" "This," he barked, waving a printout of my segment like it was evidence of a crime. "This showing off? You think people care about your little stories?" Mom stood by the sink, her hands in soapy water, her mouth pressed so thin I wondered if it would ever open for me. I didn't say anything. Not because I didn't have words. God, I had so many words. But because none of them would reach him. None of them ever had. Tyler breezed in halfway through the argument, dropped his bag, and tossed his cleats onto the table like a trophy. "Coach wants me to join the travel team. He says I could go pro." And just like that, the conversation shifted. Dad clapped him on the shoulder, beaming. "That's my boy! That's my boy right there!" I slipped out before they remembered I was standing there at all. Back in my room, I pulled the covers up to my chin and stared at the ceiling, the glow of my phone casting long, restless shadows across the wall. I wanted to hate them. I wanted to hate Tyler, Dad, Mom. But what I felt instead was worse, like a hunger I couldn't quiet. They'd never give me what I wanted, so I'd take it somewhere else. The next morning, I asked Nora if I could do a profile piece. Kids like me. Kids working multiple jobs just to survive. Stories the town liked to pretend didn't exist. She gave me a look that was half amusement, half respect. "You want hard truth? Be ready for what it costs, kid." I am. Good. Because once people see you telling the truth, they don't unsee it. Even the ones you wish would. I thought she meant my parents. I didn't know she meant everyone. The piece aired on a Sunday. I'd filmed it in alleys, fast food kitchens, cheap motels where families crammed 5 people onto a stained mattress. When my voice closed out the segment, I felt something shift under my feet, like the ground itself had finally tilted in my direction. But with every new message, every repost, every teacher who stopped me in the hallway to say they'd watched, the line at home hardened. Dad stopped speaking to me completely. Mom hovered like she wanted to say something but couldn't. Tyler, the golden boy, just rolled his eyes every time my name came up. I told myself it didn't matter. But late at night, when the newsroom was dark and my reflections stared back at me from the editing bay window, I wondered if there was still a version of me they could love. That question lingered the day the station offered me a chance at a statewide piece. It would air across every local affiliate, put my name in thousands of living rooms. It was about youth homelessness. Kids like the ones I'd profiled, but bigger, raw, impossible to ignore. It would mean missing Tyler's big semifinal. The one Dad had been bragging about for months. I almost didn't do it. I almost shrank back into that small, obedient shape they preferred. Quiet, useful, forgettable. But I didn't. I signed the release, packed my bag, booked my bus. I didn't tell them. When the piece aired, my phone lit up like fireworks. Teachers, reporters, strangers. I was sitting on a park bench, 2 towns over, my laptop balancing on my knees, when the call came from Nora. "You're everywhere, kid. They're talking syndication. You're the story now." I wanted to laugh, to cry, to call my parents just to see what they'd say. But I didn't, because back home, my parents were about to turn on the TV. And when they did, they wouldn't just see a daughter they'd never really known. They'd see the girl they couldn't control anymore. ... I didn't go home that night. I sat in the bus station cafe for 3 hours after the segment aired, sipping burnt coffee that went cold and bitter in my hands. Outside the dirty window, people drifted in and out like ghosts. Parents tugging sleepy toddlers behind them, a man in a denim jacket pacing in tight circles, muttering to no one. Every now and then, my phone buzzed on the table. Asterisk, your piece made me cry. Asterisk, you're amazing, Lo. Asterisk, when's the next one? Asterisk. Each message felt like a pebble dropped in a lake I hadn't dared swim in before. But beneath the ripples, an undertow of dread pulled at my ribs. Eventually, the cafe closed. I pulled my hood up and walked the 4 miles home under the buzz of broken streetlights, the state highway humming like a lullaby for the lonely. When I turned the corner onto our block, I knew. The living room window was lit like a stage. Dad's silhouette, broad and rigid, stood in front of the TV. Mom was behind him, arms crossed so tightly her shoulders touched her ears. Tyler sat at the kitchen table, eyes darting between them, like he wanted to vanish into the floorboards. I opened the front door, and the house exhaled all at once. A stale breath of resentment and cheap beer. You think you're special now, huh? Dad's voice was low, coiled like a snake about to strike. You think we needed to find out from the goddamn neighbors that our daughter's telling the whole world about her terrible life? It wasn't. He slammed his palm on the side table, the cheap lamp rattled. You made us look like garbage, Leora. You think people want to hear this shit? You think your brother's coach wants to hear about how we're some broken home? Mom flinched at the word broken, but she didn't step in. She never did. It wasn't about you, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. It was about kids who have no one. I wanted people to see them. You think you're saving people? Dad sneered. His eyes were bloodshot. You're just digging up dirt, making yourself look good, airing dirty laundry so people clap for you. Tyler shifted in his seat, scratching at a stain on the table. I looked at him, hoping for something, even a flicker of defense, but he didn't meet my eyes. He just muttered, I had to hear from Coach, Lo. They all saw it before I did. They think we're poor trash. I laughed, a sound so sharp it cut my throat on the way out. We are poor trash, Ty. Or did you think the second-hand cleats were designer? Dad lunged. Not to hit me. Not yet, but close enough that I smelled the stale beer on his breath. You watch your mouth. Mom finally spoke, her voice paper-thin. Why couldn't you just tell your little stories about gardens and kids planting carrots? Why'd you have to make us part of it? I wanted to scream that they'd made themselves part of it every day they looked through me. That every time they skipped my moments to chase Tyler's next goal, they'd written the story before I ever picked up a pen. But the words stuck behind my teeth. Instead, I whispered, I'm not sorry. Dad's face twitched. What? I'm not sorry. I felt my shoulders go back, my spine stiffen like a steel rod. I'm not gonna stop telling the truth, just because you don't like how it sounds. He laughed then, a hollow, humorless bark that made my skin crawl. You think that camera's gonna save you? You're still under this roof. You think you can do whatever you want, run your mouth, make us look like fools? Not under my roof, you won't. He pointed at the door. Go sleep at your TV station then, superstar. I thought he was bluffing. He'd never kicked me out before. But then he turned to Tyler. Grab her bag. Tyler hesitated. I think he wanted to say no, maybe, but he didn't. He slipped down the hallway, came back with my ratty duffel bag. It wasn't even fully packed. I felt this weird, hysterical laugh bubble up, because inside was just my thrift store blazer, my laptop charger, and a roll of mints I'd bought with pocket change. Dad shoved the bag into my chest. Go ahead! Go be the big shot. Let's see who wants you when they're done clapping. Mom didn't look at me. Not once. She just turned back to the sink, scrubbing a plate that was already clean. Tyler's eyes flicked up. For a second, they softened. He opened his mouth like he might say something. But then, Dad turned to him, and the softness vanished. I stepped outside into the night, the door slamming shut behind me. The porch light flickered once, then died. Dash, 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 dot, dot. I didn't cry. I waited for the tears to come, for that cold punch of panic, but it didn't hit the way I thought it would. I just stood there on the cracked concrete, duffel strap digging into my shoulder, staring at the place I'd called home for 17 years. And I realized it had never really been mine at all. I started walking. I didn't know where I was going, just away. My feet carried me past the corner store, the shuttered gas station, the potholes filled with rainwater that reflected the orange streetlights like tiny broken mirrors. When I got to the bus stop, I sank onto the bench. The plastic was cold enough to bite through my jeans. I tucked my knees up, buried my chin in my hoodie, and forced my breathing to stay slow. My phone buzzed again. Another message. Asterisk, we want to interview you about the piece. Call us. Another station. Bigger. Statewide. I wanted to throw the phone, but I didn't, because this was it. The point of no return. The moment I'd always known would come, when I'd have to decide if I wanted to be theirs or my own. I chose dash, 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 ... Nora let me crash on her couch that first night. She didn't say much, just shoved a pillow into my arms and flicked a cigarette ash into the sink. You sure you're ready to blow this up? She asked, not unkindly. I didn't answer, because ready or not, the fuse was already burning. The next morning, I was back at the station by dawn. Coffee in one hand, laptop in the other. My eyes were raw from no sleep, but my mind was sharp, clearer than it had ever been. I pitched 3 news stories in that morning meeting. Real stories, hard stories. Not safe, not cute. People started to pay attention, not because they loved me, but because they needed me. And when you're needed, they can't look away. Word spread. Local college kids reached out, wanting to share their truths. A mother who'd lost her job begged me to air her story, so her landlord wouldn't toss her kids into the street. Each story made me more visible and more alone. Back home, I was a ghost. Tyler didn't text, Mom didn't call, Dad certainly didn't. But at school, whispers followed me like shadows. Some kids thought I was brave. Some thought I was a traitor. The teachers watched me with this weird mix of pride and caution, like they were afraid I'd point the camera at them next. One day, I spotted Dad at the grocery store, pushing a cart full of discount cereal and frozen pizza. He didn't see me at first, but when he did, his mouth twisted like he'd bitten down on something rotten. He looked away before I could decide whether to wave. It should have hurt more. But it didn't, because every time I doubted myself, I pictured that living room, my name on the screen, my family's silence, and I knew there was no going back. That weekend, the regional news affiliate called. They wanted me on their Sunday show, a real sit-down interview, lights, makeup, a segment all about asterisk me. The producer asked, "Is there anyone you'd like to invite to the taping? Parents, friends?" I pictured Mom in her kitchen, Tyler lacing up his perfect cleats, Dad's face flickering blue in front of the TV he'd never bought for me. "No," I said. "Just me." The studio lights were so bright they made me feel like a sunbeam and a stain all at once. But when the host leaned forward, microphone clipped to her silk blouse, and asked, "Where does this come from, Leora, this fire?" I knew the answer. I opened my mouth, heartbeat steady, voice low but certain. "It comes from being invisible for too long. Now people can't look away." Somewhere I knew they were watching. My parents. Tyler. My whole town. They'd see this, whether they wanted to or not. I didn't know it yet, but that interview was just the beginning. By Monday, I'd have an inbox full of new offers, bigger networks, scholarships, a path out I'd only ever dreamed of scribbling in my notebook under the covers at night. But for every door that swung open, another slammed behind me. And one crack in that door was about to burst wide, in the shape of someone I never thought I'd see standing outside the newsroom lobby, waiting to break my heart all over again. Dash, dash, dash. I saw him before he saw me. I'd pulled the glass lobby door open with my shoulder, a stack of press releases tucked under my arm, headphones still dangling from my neck. My phone buzzed endlessly in my pocket. More interviews to book, a new pitch to finish, Nora's raspy voice echoing in my head. "Don't stop now, kid. Don't you dare. Asterisk." But then I looked up, and there he was, Tyler. My brother. The golden child. The son my parents had orbiting their little world for 17 years while I lived in the shadows. He sat hunched on one of the plastic chairs in the lobby, elbows on his knees, his soccer duffel bag at his feet like a loyal dog. He'd grown since I really looked at him last, taller, leaner, but still wearing that same old varsity jacket our dad bought him when he made his first traveling team. For a second, I thought I'd imagined him. I blinked, hoping he'd vanish back into the stories I told myself at night. The stories where he never came, never apologized, never asked for what I couldn't give. But when his eyes met mine, I knew it was real. Low. He stood up, voice low, like he wasn't sure how it was supposed to sound anymore. Hey. I clutched the stack of papers tighter. The edge bit into my palm. How'd you find me? Tyler shrugged, the duffel bag strap slung over his shoulder. Mom told me where you've been staying. She said you'd probably just slam the door if she came. He wasn't wrong. I jerked my head toward the hallway. I have 5 minutes. Then I have to get these to the producer. 5 minutes? His laugh was short, sad. You don't even want to know why I'm here? My skin prickled. Of course I wanted to know. Of course I hated that I wanted to know. He sat back down, motioning for me to do the same. I didn't. I stood there like a statue, while the receptionist, a girl named Bree, who always pretended not to eavesdrop. Tyler ran a hand through his hair. They're talking about suspending me. Coach. He said the board's nervous, the piece you did about the town, about the schools, the money. His eyes darted to mine, pleading. They think it makes the program look bad. Sponsors are pulling. He said if I can't clear it up, they might bench me for the season. Or worse. I felt my stomach drop, not because I was sorry, but because I wasn't. So what? I asked. My voice was colder than I meant it to be. You want me to call them? Apologize? Tell them I lied? It's not my job to protect your reputation anymore, Ty. His jaw clenched. It's not about that. It's about family, Lo. You dragged us through the mud. You think people don't know who your parents are? Who I am? They see you telling the world how poor we are, how messed up. You think they don't wonder why I didn't help you? I crossed my arms over my chest, the press releases crinkling under my elbow. Did you? That landed. He winced like I'd slapped him. I tried. You never let me in. You always acted like you were alone. Because I was. My voice rose, sharp enough that Bree's head snapped up. I lowered it fast. You all made sure of that. Tyler looked at the floor, his sneaker tapping a jittery rhythm on the linoleum. Dad says he won't let you come back. Not unless you make this right. I let out a hollow laugh. What is there to come back to? My old mattress on the floor? Cold dinners and empty seats? No thanks. He stood up, too fast, knocking his duffel bag over. I don't get it, Lo. We're your family. Don't you care what happens to us? His voice cracked on the word family, and for a split second, I saw him as he was when we were little. The kid who'd sneak me the last Pop-Tart, who'd hide in my room when our parents fought. I do care, I whispered. But I care about this more, about the kids who don't have anyone, about not being invisible anymore. He grabbed my wrist, not rough but desperate. Then help me, just once. Say you exaggerated. Say Dad always did his best. They'll believe you. You're their precious newsgirl now. I stared at his hand on my wrist, the grip that used to feel like an anchor. Now it felt like a chain. No, I said. I won't lie for you. Not ever again. He let go so fast it was like I burned him. For a heartbeat I thought he might scream. Instead, he shook his head, eyes glassy. You're gonna ruin us. And for what? A few news clips? Some strangers clapping? I leaned in close enough that he had to look at me. Really look at me. Better strangers clapping than living my whole life waiting for you to clap for me. I'm done waiting, Ty. He didn't say goodbye. He didn't even look back as he shoved out through the glass doors, duffel bag bouncing against his shoulder like it weighed 100 pounds. When he was gone, I let out the breath I'd been holding so long it felt like it might shatter my ribs. Bree stared at me over her desk, eyes wide. I forced a smile I didn't feel and muttered, "Family stuff, sorry." She just nodded. "Nora's waiting in the bay. She says you're up next for the promo shoot. .. The promo shoot was the biggest yet. My face, my name, splashed across the local station's social feeds, under bright studio lights that made my hair look too shiny, my eyes too wide. I hated it. I loved it. I needed it. Every click of the shutter was a promise. They can't ignore you now, Lo. You're not a secret anymore. But later that night, alone in the editing room, the weight of it pressed down like a lead blanket. I replayed Tyler's words in my head. "You're gonna ruin us." Maybe I already had. ... This story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe. Now, back to the story. Asterisk. The next day, I got the call I'd been dreading. The school board wanted me to come in. They said it was informal, just a chat about recent attention. But I knew what it was. They thought I was a liability. A 17-year-old intern with a camera and a taste for the truth. When I walked into that tiny boardroom, the walls felt like they were closing in. 4 men in 2 big suits. 1 woman with a tight bun who didn't look me in the eye. "Leora, your work is impressive," one of them started, flipping through a manila folder that I knew held printouts of my pieces, my quotes, my face on the news. "But we're concerned about the picture you're painting of this community. It's negative. It's affecting funding, sponsors." There it was again. That word. Sponsors, money, reputation. I kept my hands folded in my lap. "It's not negative if it's true." The woman with the bun frowned. "Truth is subjective. You're young. Maybe you don't understand the weight of what you're doing." I bit back a laugh. "I know exactly what I'm doing." They danced around the real threat for 15 more minutes, but I heard it loud and clear. If I didn't soften my stories, they'd find a way to make my internship vanish. They couldn't touch the scholarship. Not yet, but they could make sure I'd be boxed out of the local scene forever. When I left the building, my phone was buzzing again. "Nora, tell me you didn't agree to their bullshit," she barked before I could even say hello. "I didn't." "Good girl." I heard her light a cigarette. "Then get your ass in here. We've got something bigger. And it's yours if you want it. ... The station had landed an exclusive tip. A city official skimming money from the youth fund. The same fund that was supposed to help the kids I'd been fighting for. They wanted me to handle the research. Maybe even do the on-camera exposé. It was dangerous. It was huge. It was exactly the kind of thing that could make me or break me. When I got to Nora's office, she didn't sugarcoat it. "You do this, they'll come for you, Lo. Not just the board. Everyone. Your parents, if they're still talking to you. The neighbors. The whole damn town." I sat there, my heart pounding like a drum in my ears. I thought about Tyler's face in the lobby. About Dad's voice, sharp as broken glass. About Mom's silence, heavier than any words. I could walk away. Go back to being the girl who only told half the story, who made everyone comfortable while I shrank to fit the cracks. Or I could step into the light for good. "I want it," I said. My voice didn't shake this time. Nora smiled, slow and wicked. "Good, you've got 48 hours to prove it. ... I spent the next 2 nights living on coffee and adrenaline, digging through public records, tracking down old invoices, cold calling people who slammed the phone down the second they heard my name. And when the pieces finally lined up, the fake invoices, the forged checks, the kids who never saw a dime, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not anger, not pride, but power. I was about to hold up a mirror so big they couldn't pretend not to see their own rot. And when it aired, when my face, my voice, my story cracked their perfect town veneer wide open, I knew there'd be no going back. Not for me, not for my family, not for any of us. ... The night before the exposé aired, I sat alone in the editing bay with every single light off, except the blue glow of the screen. My face stared back at me. Frozen mid-sentence, eyes wide and bright, hair pulled back in a braid because it made me look older, sharper, like I was someone people would believe. Asterisk. The funds meant for our town's most vulnerable youth never reached them. For years, they were siphoned away. Tonight we show you how and who profited. Asterisk. Hearing my own voice on playback made my throat go dry. I'd recorded that line a dozen times until it was stripped of fear, until it was just steel and air. But it still felt dangerous in my mouth, like a match I couldn't blow out once it was lit. Nora cracked the door open, a sliver of hallway light cutting across the dark room. She leaned against the frame, smoking, her hair wild from too many late nights. "You ready?" she asked, her voice low and half bored. But her eyes, they were alive. I looked back at the screen, at the little progress bar crawling across the bottom. Final render, 95%. I swallowed the knot in my throat. "No." She laughed, raspy and bright. "Good. Ready is useless. Brave is better. Dash, 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 dot dot." The piece aired at 10 p.m. prime slot. The whole town watched. They always did when the story was about someone else's dirt. Until they realized the dirt was under their own feet. I stood behind the camera crew, half hidden by the back wall, pretending I was just a shadow. But I wasn't. My name was up there, big white letters. Special report by Leora Hastings. My voice filled the studio, filled living rooms, filled the old paneled walls of houses that looked just like mine. When the final image cut to black, the newsroom didn't cheer. It didn't have to. Everyone knew we'd just pulled the pin on something that wouldn't go quietly. Nora flicked her ash into a plastic cup, grinned sharp as glass. "Congrats, kid. You just made your first real enemies. Dash 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 dot dot." I checked my phone once I slipped into the hall. 97 new messages. Voicemails stacked like bodies in a trench. Neighbors, classmates, teachers, people I didn't even remember giving my number to. Some were proud, some were stunned, some were vile. Asterisk, hope you're proud of yourself. Asterisk, my cousin lost his job because of your mouth. Asterisk, don't come home. Asterisk, I didn't plan to. Dash dash dash, dot dot. By morning, the town was on fire. Metaphorically anyway. City Hall called an emergency meeting. The mayor, the same one who shook my hand when I won that scholarship, stood in front of a dozen cameras and tried to paint me as a confused young girl misled by reckless journalism. He looked tired, sweat glistening at his temples under the courthouse steps' harsh spotlights. But the receipts didn't lie. I'd uploaded every last scan, every bank statement, every check. Even if they tore me apart, the paper trail had teeth. Dash, 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 dot, dot. That night, I crashed at Nora's place again. She made instant ramen in a chipped mug and shoved it at me like it was a Michelin star meal. "You're gonna be fine," she said, curling into her battered recliner. "They'll bark, they'll claw, but the truth's out now. They can't stuff it back in." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But when my phone buzzed at 2:14 a.m. and I saw my mother's name on the screen, my stomach dropped so fast I nearly threw up the soup. I didn't answer. She called again. And again. By the fourth call I picked up, heart pounding so loud I barely heard her voice. "Leora," Mom said. She sounded so small. Smaller than I'd ever heard. "They're saying terrible things. The neighbors, your father's work called, your brother." Her breath hitched like she was crying. "Tyler's coach says they don't want the distraction. He might lose his spot, Lo. Do you understand?" I pressed the phone so hard to my ear it made the bone ache. "Mom, did you even watch it? Do you know what they did to those kids?" She didn't answer. Just a wet sniffle. "I just want it to stop. We just want it to stop. Please, come home. Talk to your father. Fix this." That old hunger. The one that had driven me to my knees so many nights, begging for them to see me. It flared up like a dying match. For half a second I almost said yes. I almost said I'd take it all back, spin the story into something softer, quieter, easier to forgive. But I couldn't. Because every lie I'd ever told to keep them comfortable had cost me a piece of my spine, and now I needed every single bone I had left. I can't, I said. My voice cracked, but I didn't let it break. I'm not sorry. I won't be. She hung up. ... The fallout came fast and ugly. First, the threats. Anonymous calls. Crumpled letters shoved through the newsroom's mail slot at dawn. Asterisk. Watch your back, girlie. Truth has teeth. Someone spray-painted "Watt" on the side of my bus stop shelter. A man I'd never met spat at my feet when I stepped off the bus one afternoon. Then the pushback. The city official I'd exposed went on local radio, spun it all as a misunderstanding, and called me a naive teenager with delusions of grandeur. It stuck. People liked that version better. It didn't make them feel complicit. Some nights, I'd stare at my cracked phone screen until my vision blurred, scrolling through comments under my piece. Half of them cheered me on. Brave kid. Future Pulitzer. The other half wanted my head on a stake. And in the middle of it all, my brother went silent. No texts. No calls. I heard from Nora, and only Nora, that he'd been benched for the rest of the season. His scholarship prospects were under review. The bright, easy path he'd always counted on was suddenly littered with the debris from my truth bomb. I didn't know how to feel. I wanted to feel guilty. But I didn't. Not fully. Because for once, the golden boy had to taste what it was like to be in the shadows. ... 1 week after the exposé dropped, Nora and I sat in the back booth of a greasy spoon diner, her coffee cup ringed with lipstick stains. She was reading the latest smear piece the mayor's buddies had pushed out. Teen reporter or teenage menace, she snorted. If they're calling you names, you've won. She looked up, eyes narrowing. But you know they won't stop at you. If they can't kill the truth, they'll kill the messenger. I shifted in my seat. What's that mean? It means your face is everywhere now, Lo. They'll find cracks. Old mistakes. Lies you told to survive. And they'll make you answer for every single one. A laugh bubbled up. Tired, brittle. I'm 17, Nora. I don't have skeletons. She raised an eyebrow. Everyone does. Maybe not yours. Maybe your family's. The word hit me like a slap. Bread, 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 bread. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. Tyler's name. My chest clenched so hard I thought my ribs would splinter. I answered on the second ring. Hey! His voice was low, brittle. We need to talk. ... We met behind the old high school gym, the place we used to run to when Mom and Dad fought loud enough to shake the walls. I found him sitting on the splintered bench, hood up. Cleats still muddy from practice he wasn't even playing in anymore. He didn't look up right away. When he did, his eyes were rimmed red. I'm done, Lo, he said, voice raw. Coach told me they're pulling my offer. Dad's blaming you. Mom's, I don't know. She cries every night. My throat burned. I didn't do this to you, Ty. They did. Don't. He spit the word like venom. Don't pretend you didn't know what would happen. You could have done the story without dragging us through it. But you wanted to be the hero. You wanted them to see you. I wanted them to see the truth, I snapped. He stood up so fast the bench rattled. No. You wanted them to see asterisk you. You never cared who got hit by the shrapnel. The words sank like stones in my gut. He wasn't wrong. Not completely. I'd told myself the truth was all that mattered. But maybe I'd wanted the spotlight more than I'd ever admitted. I took a step closer. So what now? You want me to retract it? I can't. It's out there. It's bigger than me. His eyes met mine. So much like our mothers, soft even when they burned. I just wanted my sister back. The one who used to care if I made the team. The one who made me promise we'd both get out of that house someday. A lump rose in my throat. I'm trying to get us out, I thought. You didn't think about me. He shoved his hands into his pockets. You never do. He turned to leave. I almost called out, but the words turned to dust on my tongue. Dash, 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 dot, dot. I sat on that bench until the sun dipped below the field lights, until my phone buzzed again. Nora, one line. We've got a lead on the next piece. Bigger than all of this. You in? Asterisk. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. I thought of Tyler's face. My mother's voice, raw and desperate. The way Dad slammed the door like it was the only thing he could control. Did the truth matter if it broke the last pieces of who you loved? My thumb hovered over the reply button. I could say no. Walk away. Go home. Beg forgiveness. Try to stitch the cracks back together. But I knew that was a lie. I'd crossed the line the moment I stepped into that spotlight. There was no going back. I typed one word. Critiway Ian. And I knew this next story wouldn't just ruin my family's illusion. It would torch the bridge I'd been trying to build back to them. Dash, 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 dot. I didn't sleep that night. After Tyler left me on that splintered bench behind the old gym, I wandered until the streetlights turned off one by one, like the world itself was too tired to keep watch over me. I ended up at the 24-hour diner again. The same greasy spoon with the cracked Formica counters and the smell of burned bacon that clung to your hair for hours. I slid into the corner booth where I knew Nora would find me. She always did. She showed up just before dawn, a styrofoam cup of gas station coffee in each hand, her keys jingling like a warning bell. She slid into the seat across from me, the bench squeaking under her weight. "Did you get any sleep?" she asked, voice still raspy from the last cigarette she'd probably stomped out in the parking lot. I just shook my head. "What's the lead?" She cracked a grin. Not warm exactly, but something like it. "That's my girl. No small talk. You know the old Westbriar housing project?" I nodded. Everyone in this town knew Westbriar. The place was a rumor, a cautionary tale, and a ghost story rolled into one. Cheap apartments stacked like shoeboxes, bad wiring, mold creeping up the drywall. Half the time the heat didn't work. Some people called it home. Others called it a death trap. Nora leaned in, her elbows leaving grease stains on the table. There's federal money that's been flowing in for quote, 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 revitalization. Millions. But the buildings are worse every year. Word is, it's a slush fund for the council's pet projects. Fake inspections, shady contractors. Families freezing through winter while the mayor's cousin gets a new vacation house. I felt something in my chest tighten. It was the same feeling I'd had when I first dug into the youth fund scandal. Like standing on the edge of a cliff with a hurricane on your back. You knew you'd be blown over, but you leaned into the wind anyway. You think people will talk? I asked. Nora's grin widened. They'll talk. They're ready to burn it down if someone just hands them a match. And you, sweetheart, are our match. Dash, 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 dot, dot. We started that morning. By 8, I was knocking on rusted metal doors in Westbriar. Notebook clutch so tight the spiral dug into my palm. Most folks cracked the door just wide enough to see who I was. Eyes suspicious, voices guarded. I told them my name, that I wasn't with the cops, that I was the girl who broke the youth fund story. I said it like a password. It worked. Doors opened a little wider. A young mom named Tasha let me sit on her milk crate kitchen chair while her baby gnawed on a cold teething ring. Her ceiling was caving in, brown water spots blooming above the crib. 5 years they say they'll fix it, she said, arms crossed tight around her chest. Inspector comes, clicks his pen, says it's fine. Next month the leak's worse. Now the floor's soft. I keep the baby with me on the couch, 'cause I'm scared the whole ceiling will come down on her head. I scribbled every word, snapping photos of the mold, the peeling paint, the dead light bulbs swinging from bare wires. By noon, I had 7 stories just like hers. I called Nora from the sidewalk, my voice shaking not with fear but with something hotter. Rage, maybe, Or something close enough, it burned the same. It's worse than I thought, I said. People are ready to talk on camera. No masks, no shadows. They're sick of hiding. Nora's low laugh rumbled through the line. Then let's not waste time, kid. We roll tomorrow. ... That night I crashed on a folding cot in the editing bay. The hum of the machines, the flicker of standby lights. It was the only lullaby I trusted anymore. At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed on my chest. Unknown number. I answered without thinking. The line was dead for a heartbeat. Then, "You think you're brave?" It was a man's voice. Deep, slick, with something I couldn't quite name. "You're just a kid. Kids get scared, kids make mistakes, and they stay buried." I sat up so fast I nearly knocked the cot over. "Who is this?" A soft chuckle. "Better be careful, Leora. People are starting to dig into you, too. You think you're squeaky clean? Maybe you are, but your family, they've got secrets, don't they? Things you didn't put on TV." My skin prickled like cold fire. "What do you know?" The line clicked dead. ... I didn't tell Nora. I knew she'd just say it was part of the job. That the more light you shine on rats, the harder they scramble to find your cracks. So I pushed it down. I showed up at Westbriar the next morning with my backpack stuffed with extra batteries, spare SD cards, my old denim jacket zipped tight against the March wind. I filmed 12 interviews in 7 hours. Grandmothers in rotting studios. Single dads fixing broken heaters with duct tape and hope. Kids who'd learned to sleep in coats and mittens because the landlord hadn't turned the boiler on in 3 winters. Each voice added a brick to the story I was building. And for every brick, I felt the ground shift a little more under my feet. Like the world was tilting to let me through. ... The day before we planned to air, Nora pulled me into the break room. She flicked her lighter over and over, but never actually lit the cigarette dangling from her lips. "They're gonna come for you harder this time," she said, voice flat. "You ready for that?" I forced a grin. "I thought I already was public enemy number 1. She snorted. "That was your warm-up, kid. You're messing with real money now. And when you threaten real money, people get desperate. Desperate people do stupid shit." I thought of the call. The voice. The promise that they'd dig until they found my cracks. I wanted to tell Nora, but the words stuck. Instead, I asked, "What if they do find something? Something I don't even know about?" She leaned back, eyes narrowing. "Then you face it. You keep your head up. The only way they win is if you flinch first." ... We planned the piece for Friday night. Prime time. The slot that made the whole town hush their dinner plates just long enough to see who got dragged into the light this week. I spent Thursday in the editing bay stitching together the hours of footage. Voiceovers recorded in a shaky whisper so the families wouldn't wake their babies. Every mold patch. Every soft floorboard. Every landlord invoice that never matched the repairs. It was the kind of story that made your skin crawl. The kind that couldn't be argued away. At 3 a.m., my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text. No number. Just a screenshot. I recognized it immediately. An old police report, barely legible, scanned like a third-generation photocopy. My mom's name. My dad's. Tyler's name, scribbled in the margins. The title. Domestic Disturbance, Hastings Residence. Asterisk. My vision blurred. I scrolled down. There it was. The line that had haunted me for years. The thing we never spoke about. Asterisk minor present during altercation. Not removed. No charges filed. Asterisk. My hands shook so bad I almost dropped the phone. The next message hit like a hammer. Asterisk. Truth cuts both ways, sweetheart. Pull your piece or this goes public. Parents. Brother. Everyone. TikTok. Asterisk. ... I stumbled into the hallway, half sobbing, half cursing, phone clutched to my chest like a bomb. Nora found me 10 minutes later. Hair up, sweatshirt inside out, eyes flashing murder. "Who sent that?" she hissed. "I don't know. Blocked number." My voice cracked on every word. "They're threatening to dig up our old mess. My family, we'd get ripped apart." Nora grabbed my shoulders, fingers digging in. "They already did that to you, kid. This is what they do. They can't kill the truth, so they come for you. You gonna let them?" "I don't know." I hated how small my voice sounded. "What if they run it? What if it hurts Tyler again? Mom? Even Dad?" "They chose their side when they shut the door on you," she snapped. "This is your life now. This is what it costs to stay seen." I wanted to scream, to run, to erase every line I'd written, every clip I'd filmed. But deep down, under the panic, I knew I couldn't. Because they'd take my story, they'd twist it. They'd make me the villain in the story I'd started to tell so I wouldn't disappear. ... The next afternoon, I sat in the recording booth, mic inches from my lips. My hand trembled as I pressed record. Asterisk. When you live in the dark long enough, you forget there's another way to breathe. But sometimes, you shine a light so bright, the darkness comes for you instead. Here's what they don't want you to see. Asterisk. I poured every word out like it was my last confession. I knew the backlash would come. I just didn't know who would deliver it first. ... At exactly 8:01 p.m., the West Briar expose hit the airwaves. Every filthy ceiling, every rigged inspection, every stolen dollar, all of it out there, unspinnable, undeniable. I watched it from the newsroom. The hum of the monitors, the soft murmur of reporters pretending not to stare at me. It felt like standing inside a bomb shelter, waiting for the world outside to realize the walls were gone. When the credits rolled, Nora leaned over my shoulder, breath warm against my ear. "You did it, kid." But my phone vibrated before I could answer 3 times, then 4. Notifications lit up like fireflies. The threats had started. The insults. The fake rumors. And then a single ping that made my skin turn to ice. It was from Tyler. Asterisk. "You need to come home. Now. Please. Before it's too late." Asterisk. ... I don't remember getting up from my chair. One moment, Nora was still talking beside me, her cigarette burning a slow halo above her fingers. And the next, my phone screen was the only light I could see. Tyler's message burned in my brain so hot, it blurred the rest of the newsroom into static. "Come home. Now. Please. Before it's too late." It was the please that did it. Tyler never said please. Not when we were kids fighting over the last granola bar. Not when he needed my notes to pass history. Not even that night when he stood outside the lobby and begged me to fix it. I grabbed my backpack off the floor. Nora's voice broke through the hum in my head. "Where do you think you're going?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. I just shoved through the glass doors, the cold spring air slapping my cheeks awake. ... The bus ride back to our street felt longer than the 17 years I'd lived there. I pressed my forehead against the window, breath fogging the scratched glass. The city slid past in a blur of flickering streetlights and boarded-up shops. The same block that once felt like a cage, now looked like a ghost town waiting to swallow me whole again. What if it was Dad? What if someone had gone after him for what I'd exposed? What if the secrets I'd yanked into the light had finally grown teeth sharp enough to bite back? Not at me, but at the people I'd left behind. The bus squealed to a stop 3 blocks from our house. I didn't wait for the door to open all the way. I ran. My boots slapped the cracked sidewalk, lungs burning in the cold night air. The closer I got, the heavier my feet felt. Like the street itself was dragging me back to the version of myself I'd spent this entire year trying to bury. When I rounded the corner, I saw the cruiser lights first. Red and blue strobing over our sagging front porch. An ambulance, its back doors yawning open like a mouth too stunned to speak. Figures moved inside the living room window. shadows that didn't belong there. I froze halfway up the walk, my chest seizing so tight I tasted iron. Tyler met me on the porch. His hair was plastered to his forehead with sweat, his hands shaking as he gripped the railing like it was the only thing keeping him upright. What happened? My voice sounded like it was underwater. His eyes, bloodshot and raw, flicked to the living room window, to the paramedics moving inside. Mom sat hunched on the couch, her hands twisted in her lap. Dad was nowhere in sight. "It was Dad," Tyler said. He lost it, Lo. He found the old report, the one that's been floating around since your piece aired. He thinks you leaked it on purpose. He kept screaming that you ruined him. I didn't." The words fell out before I could stop them. "I didn't leak it. I never would." "I know." Tyler's voice cracked like cheap glass. "But he doesn't. He was drinking. More than usual. Mom tried to calm him down. He hit her. First time in years. I called 911. My legs went numb." "Is she?" Tyler shook his head fast. "She's okay. A bruise. That's all. But they took him. They're booking him tonight. He kept saying your name over and over, like you were standing there holding the bottle." I sank down onto the porch steps, my backpack sliding off my shoulders and thumping onto the concrete. "He'll say it's my fault," I whispered. "He'll tell everyone I started this, that I brought the cops into our house. Again." Tyler sat beside me. For the first time in weeks, he didn't flinch away. He just rested his elbows on his knees, staring at the patchy grass we used to play tag on before the world got mean. "Did you?" he asked. I wanted to shove him, to scream, "How could you even ask me that?" But I heard the question under the question, not, "Did you leak it? Did you choose us ever?" "I didn't do this to him," I said, my voice so hoarse it hurt. "But I guess I didn't save him either. Dash, 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 ... Inside the house, everything felt smaller than I remembered. The living room stank of stale beer and cheap cologne. The coffee table was flipped, a family photo smashed beneath it, one from my 8th grade band recital. You could barely see me in it, half cropped behind Tyler's soccer trophy. Mom sat on the couch, her cheeks swelling purple around the eye. She wouldn't look at me at first. Just kept tracing the hem of her robe, the way she used to pick at the peeling vinyl on the car seat during long drives when Dad was in one of his moods. "Mom," I started. She flinched, the tiniest jerk of her shoulder, like my voice was just another slap. "I'm sorry," I said. The words tasted sour in my mouth. "I never wanted this." Her eyes flicked up, red-rimmed and shining. "You think you know what you want, Leora. You think you're helping. But you don't see who you hurt." I knelt beside her, my knees sinking into the old carpet. "You don't have to protect him anymore." She let out a laugh. Brittle, empty. "It's never been about protecting him. It's about keeping us whole, or what's left of us." She reached out then, the tips of her fingers brushing my hair, like she was trying to remember who I used to be. Or who she used to be. "Go," she said finally. Her voice was soft but sharp enough to draw blood. "Before you finish what you started. ... I stumbled back outside. Tyler stood on the porch, hugging himself against the wind. "Where are you gonna go?" he asked. I looked at him. My brother, who I'd spent half my life fighting for and fighting with. The kid who used to be my best friend when the nights got too loud. The kid who would never look at me the same way again. "Where I always go," I said. Back to the story. He opened his mouth like he wanted to beg me to stay. But the words died behind his teeth. He just nodded, eyes bright with something like betrayal. Or maybe relief. ... I didn't stop walking until I was 5 blocks away, the houses thinning out into cracked parking lots and rusted chain-link fences. I ducked into the payphone booth at the corner, the one no one bothered to rip out because nobody remembered it was there. I dialed Nora's number from memory. When she answered, I didn't even wait for her usual raspy hello. Run the next piece, I said. I don't care what they dig up. I'm not stopping. There was a beat of silence. Then her laugh, low, proud, tired. That's my girl, she said. ... When I hung up, I stared at my reflection in the scratched glass. My eyes too big, my hair wild from the wind, my mouth set like a lock. I'd crossed the line a long time ago. But tonight, standing in that flickering booth under a sky that didn't care if I lived or burned, I realized there was no line anymore. It was just me. The truth. And the war they'd waged to bury both. ... I stayed in that glass booth long enough for my breath to frost the cracked panes, long enough for the payphone's dial tone to buzz like a mosquito in my ear. When I finally stepped out, dawn was cracking through the dirty sky, a thin pink bruise over the rooftops. My boots crunched over last night's frost. I pulled my hood up and kept my head down as I walked back to the station. Nora was already there when I pushed through the heavy glass doors. She stood by the front desk, her coat draped over her shoulders like a cape, eyes sharper than they'd been in weeks. "You okay?" she asked. She didn't say, "You look like hell," but I could hear it under her words. I dropped my backpack on the floor, the weight of my laptop, notebooks, and that single battered award certificate clunking against my ankle. "Nope, run the story." She studied my face like she was looking for cracks. Then she gave me the smallest, most dangerous smile I'd ever seen her wear. "Good girl, ... The next 48 hours bled together like an open wound. We didn't sleep. We didn't eat unless someone shoved stale donuts and gas station coffee into our hands. We hunkered down in the editing bay. Nora, me, and a kid named Jace, who was technically an intern like I was, but who knew how to hack into county building records faster than any adult on payroll. West Briar had been just the first layer. The new tip hit harder. The mayor's cousin's construction company. Faked invoices. Inspections signed off by the same ghost contractor. Millions gone, washed through shell corporations with names that all ended in Community Revitalization Group. Real people. Real children shivering in drafty apartments. Moms with third jobs who didn't know they'd paid the price for someone else's pool house. I could feel the town's eyes pressing in from the other side of every locked door, some eyes hungry for blood, some begging for deliverance. ... By the second night, the backlash started scratching at our windows. First, the online threats. Then, a brick through the lobby door at 2 a.m. Bree, the sweet front desk girl who'd always pretended not to listen, pressed an ice pack to her temple where the splintered glass had caught her. "You're gonna get us all killed, Lo," she said, voice soft, trembling. Nora just handed her a stack of hazard pay forms. "No one dies on my watch," she said. "And if they do, they better bleed truth all over the carpet." I wished I believed her. ... The next morning, I walked into school for the first time in a week, not because I wanted to, but because Nora said if I was going to stand in the storm, I had to stand in the middle of it. Hallways that used to feel too small now stretched out forever, every step echoing with the hiss of whispers. Asterisk. That's her. Asterisk. Traitor. Asterisk. Hero. Asterisk. Bitch. Asterisk. Tyler wasn't at his locker. I half expected him to jump out from behind the trophy case and shove me against the wall like when we were 12, playing tag like we didn't know we were already at war. But he was gone. Coach benched him for good. His scholarship was under review. The bright golden path my family built for him was cracked because of me. Or because of the truth I wouldn't swallow. I couldn't tell which anymore. ... By lunch, the principal's office called me down. The secretary's eyes darted between me and the paper. She clutched like it might bite her fingers. "Mr. Davenport wants to see you." Mr. Davenport was the kind of man who made a show of being on your side, the open-door policy kind of guy. But today, his door felt like the mouth of a bear trap. He didn't even offer me a chair. You know how much damage you've done? He asked, fingers drumming on his desk. His shirt collar was damp with sweat. Damage to who? I shot back. My voice cracked. I hated that. To all of us, Leora. His voice dropped to a hush like he was afraid the walls would repeat him. Sponsors are pulling out. The board is in chaos. Parents are furious. Do you think colleges want students who stir up this kind of trouble? Do you think they want the PR nightmare you're dragging in with you? I felt my stomach twist. He didn't even hide it. The threat woven in the softest possible words. You're just a kid, he added, his tone turning that syrupy shade adults used when they wanted you to feel small. One day you'll regret this. Maybe not today. But when you need people to open doors for you and they don't, you'll remember. I stood there, knuckles white against the straps of my backpack. I wanted to tell him the truth, that the doors he guarded were never meant to open for girls like me anyway. But I didn't say a word. I just turned and walked out. .. Outside the front doors, the wind cut through my jacket like a knife. My phone buzzed with a new message. A blocked number again. Asterisk. Your family's not the only skeleton closet, superstar. Check your email. Asterisk. I ducked behind the dumpster behind the cafeteria. The only place I knew the Wi-Fi would still reach, but no one would see me fall apart. The file hit my inbox like a bullet. At first, it was the same old stuff. The domestic incident report, Dad's arrest record from years ago, then a second file, newer, cleaner. I clicked it open and felt my ribs cave in. It was a leak from the Youth Scholarship Board, my name circled in red. An anonymous tip saying I'd lied on my scholarship application, that my essays had been ghostwritten by a mentor, that I'd exaggerated my family's hardship for sympathy points. All of it, garbage. But close enough to believable that I could already see how it would spread like mold in the dark corners of every classroom, every newsroom, every comment section that had once called me brave. .. I was still crouched there when Nora found me, her boots crunching over last week's dirty snow. She didn't say anything at first, just crouched down beside me and flicked her lighter open and closed. You know who's doing this? She asked. No. I swiped my sleeve across my eyes. But they're not wrong, are they? No one wants their hero with dirt under her fingernails. She let out a sharp laugh. Kid, they never wanted you to be a hero. They wanted you to stay invisible. You don't owe them squeaky clean. She lit the cigarette and sucked down half of it in one drag. You ready for the next part? My stomach turned. What's the next part? She held out her phone. On it, a list of every family who'd come forward since Westbriar. Twice as many as before. People ready to blow the door off the entire housing racket. Your exposé worked, she said. You set the match. Now you can run, or you can stand here and watch the whole thing burn. Your choice. I looked at my reflection in her phone screen. Eyes red, hair tangled, a girl who could still feel her brother's pleas ringing in her skull. I thought about what the principal said, about doors that wouldn't open. I thought about the porch light that never came on for me. I thought about the next kid who'd sleep in a moldy room while some councilman's pocket got fatter. I swallowed. My voice felt like gravel. Run it all. Nora smiled. Teeth bared like a wolf. Atta girl. .. We didn't wait. That night we went live with the new piece. On the local channel, the website, every social feed I'd once been terrified to claim. The backlash hit harder than ever. Death threats. Graffiti on the station walls. A letter slid under my door at the old boarding house where I'd been crashing. 4 words, cut out from magazines like some bad movie. Stay silent or else. Tyler called once. I let it go to voicemail. The message was short. Asterisk. They're coming for you, Lo. Be careful. I can't help you anymore. Asterisk. .. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in the editing bay window, watching the first snow of the season blow sideways under the parking lot lights. The newsroom hummed behind me. Computers whirring, the ghost of tomorrow's headlines already floating in the stale coffee air. I pressed my palm to the cold glass, my reflection fractured into 1,000 tiny pieces by the frost. Somewhere down there, maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, someone was waiting to bury me. But I'd learned how to live with the dirt. ... That window became my church. I must have pressed my palm to the cracked glass for an hour. The newsroom humming behind me, printers coughing out stories I'd never read, the overhead lights turning every reflection into a ghost. It felt like standing in the middle of my own funeral, like I was the last one who hadn't gotten the memo that I was already dead. I knew Nora was behind me before she said a word. I could hear her lighter, the metallic flick-flick that always meant her mind was running faster than her mouth could catch up. "Kid," she said. Her voice was softer than usual. Too soft, like the calm before a storm you see crawling across the highway. "You need to go home." I laughed. I could feel the sound rattle around my ribcage like pennies in an empty jar. "I don't have a home." She stepped closer, her reflection sliding into the glass next to mine. Two ghosts side by side. "You need to sleep. You need to eat something that wasn't brewed in a gas station or scraped out of a vending machine. You're no good to me if you drop dead in the bay." I turned to her. "You said you'd never let them bury me." She didn't flinch, didn't look away. "I won't, but I'm not gonna stand here and watch you dig your own grave either." ... I went. I didn't want to, but the look in her eyes was enough, like she was seeing every bruise I'd been collecting on the inside. I walked through the newsroom, past Bree at her desk. She didn't look up. Past Jace hunched over a stack of invoices, his earbuds tucked in so tight you could practically hear the bass notes thumping through his skull. They were all fighting my war, and I was the weakest soldier in the room. Outside, the snow came down harder. It clung to my hair, melted down the back of my neck. I tugged my hood up, eyes squinted against the wind. The streets felt different at midnight. Wider, emptier, more honest. Like they didn't care if I made it to tomorrow. I didn't go home. Not the house that still smelled like stale beer and unspoken apologies. I went to the only place that felt mine, the library. It was closed, but the back stairwell was always unlocked if you knew how to jiggle the latch. The old janitor used to keep it cracked for me when I was 12 and too scared to go home. I sat on the cold concrete steps, knees tucked to my chest, backpack wedged against my side like a guard dog. I thought about the last time I felt warm, really warm, not the kind of warmth that cost more than I had to pay. ... I must have drifted off because when I jerked awake, I heard footsteps above me on the landing. Heavy, hesitant. My pulse hit my throat so hard I tasted blood. I curled tighter around my bag, fingers groping for the pepper spray I'd buried under a wad of gum wrappers and reporters' notebooks. "Lo?" The voice cracked through the dark like a match strike. "Not Nora. Not Tyler. Mrs. Patel." I squinted up into the stairwell light. There she was, hair tucked under a knit beanie, glasses fogged from the cold. She looked older than I remembered. Or maybe I just hadn't looked at her in months. Not since the day I sat in her office and spilled my guts about my parents skipping my award ceremony for a kid's soccer game. "Mrs. Patel?" My voice scraped out like I hadn't used it in days. She stepped down, careful not to slip. "I heard. About your father, about the station, about everything." I felt my face twist, the bitterness creeping in before I could catch it. "You here to say I told you so? Or to tell me to drop it before I break my family for good?" She sat down beside me, not close enough to touch, but close enough that I could feel her warmth bleeding through the air. "I'm here to tell you they were broken before you said a word," she said. "You just stopped pretending you could fix them alone." That did it. The tears I'd been burying for days finally clawed their way out. Hot. Ugly. No polite sniffles. Just full-body sobs that made my shoulders shake and my breath come out in ragged gasps. Mrs. Patel just sat there, one hand braced on the cold concrete, her other tucked into her coat pocket like she was holding the whole damn world in there. When I finally choked myself back together, I wiped my eyes with my sleeve. "I thought the truth would save me," I whispered. "I thought if I said it loud enough, someone would finally see me. She turned her head just enough that I could see her smile. Sad, soft. They did. That's what scares them. Dash, 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 dot, dot. She stayed with me until dawn. We didn't talk about the story, or my father in the drunk tank, or Tyler's scholarships drying up one letter at a time. We just sat in the stairwell, like two kids hiding from monsters we both knew would find us eventually. When the sun cracked the sky open, she pressed a folded piece of paper into my palm. There's a shelter a few blocks over. Not the downtown one, the one near the old grocery depot. Tell them I sent you. They'll keep you warm tonight, and they'll keep you safe. I wanted to say thank you, I really did. But the words stuck behind the bruise in my throat, so I nodded instead. Dash, 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 dot, dot. I never made it to the shelter. I was halfway there when my phone buzzed. No caller ID, no name, just a line of text that slammed the air out of my lungs. Asterisk. You want the truth, Leora? Meet me where it started. The tracks. Alone. Asterisk. I knew where asterisk the tracks meant. The place behind the warehouse. Past the old train yard where we used to drink cheap beer when we were 15, pretending the whole world was ours to ruin. I should have called Nora. I should have called the cops. I should have done 1,000 things that smart people do when they know they're being hunted. But the truth was a drug I couldn't quit. Not when someone else held a piece of it I'd never seen. So I went. Dash, 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 dot, dot. The tracks were half buried under new snow, the ties slick and black like old bones. The warehouse loomed behind me, windows punched out like broken teeth. I stuffed my hands into my pockets and scanned the dark. Every shadow too big, too quiet. Then I heard it. The crunch of boots on gravel. I spun around so fast my vision blurred. It was Tyler, or at least it looked like him. Hoodie up, hands jammed in his pockets, eyes wild in the flickering streetlight. Ty! My breath came out in clouds. What are you doing here? He didn't answer right away. He just stood there, rocking on his heels like he was about to run or swing or both. You ruined everything, he said. Not a shout. Not even angry. Just tired. Broken. Tyler, please. I took a step forward. He flinched like I'd thrown a punch. They're saying I knew. That I helped you dig. That I sold Dad out for clout. Coach won't return my calls. Mom won't stop crying. And it's all your fault. His hands shook. He pulled something out of his pocket. Not a gun, a phone. He held it up, the screen flickering with a video. Look at this, he hissed. Look at what they have on you. I squinted. The video was grainy, shaky. It was me, from months ago, the night I recorded my first voiceover for the youth piece. My voice was raw, full of anger and hope in equal measure. But the caption scrolling across the top made bile rise in my throat. Asterisk. Local teen confesses to fabricating facts for news story. Admits truth is overrated. Asterisk. It was chopped up, spliced. The truth twisted until it strangled itself. Where did you get this? I demanded. Tyler's shoulders caved in. They sent it to Mom, to me. Said if I didn't bring you here, they'd ruin us for good. Dad would never work again. She'd lose the house. You'd lose your scholarship. A cold, wet dread seeped into my bones. So you lured me here to what? Hand me over? He looked at me, eyes rimmed red, tears freezing on his lashes. I don't know. I don't know anymore, Lo. I just want it to stop. Behind him, another shadow stepped out of the dark. Tall, broad shoulders, breath misting like smoke. I recognized the voice before I saw the face. Well, well, if it isn't our little hero, said the mayor's fixer, the man whose voice had slithered down my phone line so many nights before. You wanted the truth, sweetheart? Here it is. We own yours now. Dash, 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 dot. The fixer's boots crunched over the old rail ties, slow and steady. The sound of a man who knew no one would stop him tonight. His breath curled in the air like cigarette smoke. He wasn't tall, not really, but he felt like he took up all the space between me and Tyler, between me and the exit I hadn't even let myself see yet. He stopped just shy of the cracked yellow crossing sign. His eyes flicked to the phone. Tyler still clutched like a live grenade. "Good work, kid," the fixer said. His voice was slick as oil, the kind that never washes out of your hair once it seeps in. "Knew you'd come through for your family." Tyler's mouth opened like he was going to protest, but the fixer just clapped him on the shoulder. Gentle, fatherly, all the more terrifying for it. I forced myself to stand taller, even though my knees felt like they'd snap if I shifted wrong. "What do you want?" I asked. My voice barely sounded like mine. Hoarse and low, but not small. The fixer clicked his tongue like he was disappointed in a puppy that bit too hard. "Come on now, Leora, don't play dumb. We want what you want. Peace. A chance to move on. Stop dragging people through the mud. Stop embarrassing this town with your little pity crusades." He lifted a tiny USB drive from his pocket, letting it spin from his finger like a pendulum. "This is what happens next. You record a statement. Say you lied. Say you exaggerated. Call it youthful ambition gone wrong. Say you're sorry. You're 17. You'll bounce back. The station gets a slap on the wrist. The council's image recovers. And your sweet brother gets to keep chasing that soccer scholarship instead of flipping burgers to pay your lawyer fees." The snow seemed to hush the world all around us. The wind died. Even the streetlight above us flickered and stuttered, like it didn't want to witness what came next. I looked at Tyler. His shoulders curled inward like a sheet of paper someone had wadded up and forgotten to throw away. "You did this?" I asked him. I didn't mean for it to come out so soft. It just did. He shook his head so fast I thought it might snap off. "I didn't know I just wanted it to stop. They said they'd help Dad if I brought you here." The fixer sighed, patting his cheek like a disappointed uncle. "You kids. Always thinking you can have it both ways. Truth and family. Spotlight and shelter. You should know better than anyone. You don't get to keep both. .. I thought about the library stairwell, about Mrs. Patel's hand on mine. Asterisk. They were broken before you said a word. You just stopped pretending you could fix them alone. Asterisk. I thought about the ceiling above the baby's crib in West Briar, the mold stains crawling like rot through the drywall while some official stuffed another envelope into his coat pocket. I thought about Tyler's pleas, about my mother's swollen cheek, about my father's voice slurring my name like an accusation he'd waited 17 years to deliver. My hands didn't feel like mine when I reached for the USB, but I didn't grab it. I flicked it out of the fixer's grip so fast he didn't have time to react. The tiny drive hit the slush by the tracks and vanished under a patch of crusted snow. The fixer's smile cracked at the edges, sharp enough to draw blood. "That was a mistake, sweetheart." I squared my shoulders, forcing my spine to stay locked. "No, I've made mistakes. Telling the truth wasn't one of them. .. He stepped closer, so close I could see the tiny red veins threading through the whites of his eyes. "Do you think that camera crew you hide behind will show up out here tonight? Huh? Think they'll edit your bruises into a good headline if you don't walk away while you still can?" I opened my mouth, but Tyler moved before I could find the words. He lunged. Not at the fixer, but at me. He grabbed my wrist and hissed under his breath, "Stop. Please. Just stop, Lo. They'll ruin us." I looked at him. Really looked. His eyes were the same brown I saw in the mirror every morning for 17 years, but his were wide with fear. Mine were wide open. I yanked my hand free. "I can't. .. The fixer chuckled, a sound like gravel and glass. "So be it." He signaled to the shadows behind him. I hadn't even noticed the other shapes slinking along the edge of the tracks. 2 men, bulkier than him, jackets zipped up to hide the bruiser outlines. I knew this was the part where I should run. But my feet rooted to the icy gravel. Because what they wanted to take from me wasn't in my pockets. It wasn't even in my bag. It was inside my ribs. The one thing they could never bury if I didn't hand them the shovel. .. The first guy grabbed me by the shoulder, his grip bruising through my coat. I felt the fight bubble up like acid in my throat. Not clean, not heroic, just raw and stupid. I swung my elbow back and caught him in the gut. He grunted but didn't let go. Tyler shouted, a strangled, useless sound that cracked against the night air. He lunged at the fixer but got shoved face first into the snow. I twisted free of the first guy, my boot catching on the icy rail tie. I stumbled, and the second one was on me before I could suck down another breath. He didn't hit me, not yet. He just squeezed my jaw so hard my teeth ground together. You want your 15 minutes, baby girl? He sneered. Smile for the camera. Tell him you're sorry. I spat at him. It hit his cheek, freezing before he could wipe it away. .. Then everything blurred. The fixer's voice snapped like a whip. Do it, now! But before the bruiser could pull out his phone, before Tyler could crawl out of the snow, before I could think, this is how it ends, asterisk. The darkness behind the tracks cracked open. Headlights. A battered Civic lurched over the snow-packed ruts, tires spitting slush. The horn blared, a shrill, desperate scream that echoed off the warehouse walls. The guy holding me turned. Just enough. That was all I needed. I slammed my knee up, caught him between the legs. He went down with a howl. Tyler scrambled back, shielding his face as the Civic skidded to a stop. The driver's side door slammed open, and there she was, Nora. Hair wild under her beanie, cigarette clamped between her teeth, eyes on fire. She didn't even kill the engine. She just pointed at the fixer and his goons, her voice a snarl. Touch her again, and I'll show this town what a real scandal looks like. .. For a second, just one, the fixer's smirk flickered. He weighed his odds. 2 bruisers, 1 old Civic, 1 girl with a phone and a voice she wouldn't bury. He stepped back, raised his hands like a man with a poker chip he'd just cashed in. You can't hide forever, Hastings. Sooner or later, the dirt you dig swallows you whole. I laughed. Sharp, shaky, half hysterical. Then I'll bury you first. The fixer nodded to his guys. They melted into the dark like oil back into a cracked pipe. Nora grabbed my arm, her fingers biting into my sleeve. You good? I couldn't answer. I just clutched the doorframe of her car like it was the only solid thing left in my world. Tyler stood there in the snow, hoodie hanging off his shoulders, his breath hitching like he didn't know how to fill his lungs anymore. He looked at me, eyes shining in the headlights. Low. I didn't, but I couldn't hear the rest. Nora slammed the door, threw the Civic into reverse, and gunned it so fast my head hit the seat. .. Back at the station, I sat on the lobby floor with my knees hugged to my chest while Nora paced in tight, angry circles. They'll come again, she said. They don't stop. Not when they smell weakness. I let my head fall back against the wall. I'm not weak. She paused, her boots squeaking against the cheap linoleum. No, but you're alone. I opened my eyes. So what now? Nora stubbed her cigarette out on her boot heel, ground it so hard the embers went cold. Now you tell them everything. Every threat, every bribe, every name. You shine that light so bright they can't see anything but you. Her eyes locked on mine. Fierce, tired, unstoppable. And you better be ready to stand in that light naked, because when they can't twist your truth, they'll come for the parts you never wanted to show. I felt something break loose inside my chest. Not fear. Not exactly. More like the final splinter of hope that I could do this without losing the last scraps of who I'd been. I knew what I had to do. Run it all, I said. My voice didn't shake. .. But when I opened my email that night, ready to send the first files, the headline waiting at the top of my inbox made the room spin. Asterisk, teen reporter accused of fabricating stories. Source leaks new evidence of plagiarism and lies. Asterisk, a link. A video. My voice. Twisted. Dismembered. Reassembled until I sounded like the villain they always wanted. Beneath it, an anonymous comment. Asterisk. This is only the beginning. Tell the truth about who you really are. Or we will… Asterisk. Dash dash dash. I read the headline 6 times before I could breathe. Asterisk. Teen reporter accused of fabricating stories. Source leaks, new evidence of plagiarism and lies. Asterisk. My finger hovered over the link. My thumb trembled. I clicked. There I was. Grainy phone footage, the same broken audio I'd heard Tyler play for me at the tracks. Spliced. Twisted. It made me sound like every monster they needed me to be. Asterisk. Truth is overrated. Asterisk. You just make it up. Asterisk. Asterisk. People will believe anything you feed them. Asterisk. But it wasn't true. I knew what I'd said that night in the booth. The truth is overrated when it's buried. We're digging it up. They'd cut my words in half, stitching them into a lie. It was almost genius. So simple you'd think it had always been there, waiting under my skin for the world to peel it open. Dash, 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 dot, dot. Nora found me curled in the break room, laptop screen, still burning the headline into my eyes. She didn't say, Kana's, how bad is it? Asterisk, or Kana's, who did this? She just grabbed my mug off the counter, poured 2 inches of black coffee into it, and slammed it down in front of me. Drink, she said. I can't fix this. My voice cracked on the last word. I hated how raw it sounded, like I was 14 again, standing in the living room asking my parents to come to my award ceremony while they zipped up Tyler's duffel bag instead. Nora leaned her hip against the fridge. You can't fix it because it was never yours to break. They did this. They're scared. I let out a bitter laugh. Scared of a kid who can't even afford a lawyer? She tilted her head, studying me. You think they do this to people they're not scared of? I wanted to believe her, but I could already see the comment sections. Noose, typical teen drama. Knew she was a liar. Look at her family. Apple doesn't fall far. They'd pull out the old reports about dad's drinking. The domestic disturbance. They'd say my whole life was one big performance, staged for sympathy. Who'd believe a girl like me over City Hall, over the fixers, over the people who owned every screen in this town? Dash, 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 dot, dot. I stumbled out of the break room while Nora barked orders into her phone. I passed Jace by the copy machine. He wouldn't even look at me. Bree, the front desk girl who used to leave me sticky notes with, "You're killing it," ducked her head and pretended to read the same coffee club sign 3 times. That was the worst part. Not the hate. The doubt. Because once doubt cracked open a story, it spread like black mold. Even the people who wanted to believe me were suddenly whispering, "What if?" Asterisk under their breath. Dash, 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 dot. I read the headline 6 times before I could breathe. Asterisk. Teen reporter accused of fabricating stories. Source leaks, new evidence of plagiarism and lies. Asterisk. My finger hovered over the link. My thumb trembled. I clicked. There I was. Grainy phone footage. The same broken audio I'd heard Tyler play for me at the tracks. Spliced. Twisted. It made me sound like every monster they needed me to be. Asterisk. Truth is overrated. Asterisk. You just make it up. Asterisk. Asterisk. People will believe anything you feed them. Asterisk. But it wasn't true. I knew what I'd said that night in the booth. The truth is overrated when it's buried. We're digging it up. They'd cut my words in half, stitching them into a lie. It was almost genius. So simple you'd think it had always been there, waiting under my skin for the world to peel it open. Dash, 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 dot, dot. Nora found me curled in the break room, laptop screen still burning the headline into my eyes. She didn't say, "How bad is it?" asterisk or "Who did this?" She just grabbed my mug off the counter, poured 2 inches of black coffee into it, and slammed it down in front of me. Drink, she said. I can't fix this. My voice cracked on the last word. I hated how raw it sounded. Like I was 14 again, standing in the living room asking my parents to come to my award ceremony while they zipped up Tyler's duffel bag instead. Nora leaned her hip against the fridge. You can't fix it because it was never yours to break. They did this, they're scared. I let out a bitter laugh. Scared of a kid who can't even afford a lawyer? She tilted her head, studying me. You think they do this to people they're not scared of? I wanted to believe her, but I could already see the comment sections. Typical teen drama. Knew she was a liar. Look at her family. Apple doesn't fall far. They'd pull out the old reports about dad's drinking. The domestic disturbance. They'd say my whole life was one big performance, staged for sympathy. Who'd believe a girl like me over City Hall, over the fixers, over the people who owned every screen in this town? ... I stumbled out of the break room while Nora barked orders into her phone. I passed Jace by the copy machine. He wouldn't even look at me. Bree, the front desk girl who used to leave me sticky notes with, "You're killing it," ducked her head and pretended to read the same coffee club sign 3 times. That was the worst part. Not the hate, the doubt. Because once doubt cracked open a story, it spread like black mold. Even the people who wanted to believe me were suddenly whispering, "What if?" Asterisk under their breath. ... I didn't go to the editing bay, I didn't go to my cot under the flickering hallway light, I just walked. Out the station doors. Into the wind that cut through my coat like knives. I didn't care. The town looked different now. Like every window was an eye. Every street lamp. A spotlight I hadn't earned. I found myself back at the library steps before I even knew I was walking that way. The same stairwell where Mrs. Patel had found me that night. But tonight, there was no one there. Just me and the echo of my own heartbeat. ... My phone buzzed. Unknown number. For a second, I thought it was the fixer again, ready to twist the knife. But the voice on the other end wasn't his. It was softer. Familiar. Leora? My throat tightened. Mrs. Patel? She sighed. I saw. The video, the headlines. I bit my lip until I tasted blood. Do you believe it? The silence on her end was the longest 30 seconds of my life. I believe what I've seen, she said. I've seen you show up when no one else did. I've seen you fight for the truth, even when it cost you everything. A tear slipped down my cheek, carving a burning path in the cold. But Leora, she added, her voice gentle but firm. Belief isn't enough this time. You need proof, receipts, witnesses, or they will bury you under the lie they built. How? I rasped. They control everything. They hold the clips, the people. My brother. You have one thing they don't, she cut in. Your truth. And the ones they hurt. If you can get the people you fought for to stand up with you, on camera, in print, anywhere, they can't erase you. Her words wrapped around me like a thread stitching up a tear that hadn't stopped bleeding in days. Start with the people you saved, she said. Let them remind you who you are. ... The line clicked dead before I could say thank you. I stared at the brick wall across the street, the town's courthouse tower blinking in the dark like a dying eye. I could run. I could disappear. Let the fixer win. Let Tyler's last pleas echo through the empty tracks for the rest of my life. Or I could do the one thing they never thought I'd do. Stay. ... I spent the next 12 hours in every corner of West Briar. My breath fogged the windows of tiny apartments where mold still crept up cracked drywall. I knocked on doors until my knuckles bled through my gloves. Tasha, the young mom whose ceiling leaked over her baby's crib, opened her door wide when she saw my face. They're saying you lied, Leora, she said. Her toddler peered out from behind her leg, thumb wedged between her teeth. I didn't, I said. The words sounded fragile, but they were all I had. They're trying to bury it. But you know it's real. You know it's all real. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she stepped aside. Tell me what you need. ... By dawn, I had video statements from 5 families. Shaky phone clips, tearful truths, moldy ceilings, and frayed blankets, held up to the camera like bruises. I uploaded them all. No edits, no dramatic soundtracks, just raw life, unpolished and undeniable. Asterisk. She told our story when no one else would. Asterisk. If Leora Hastings is a liar, then so am I. Asterisk. Dash 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 dot dot. When the videos hit the local feed, the hate didn't vanish. But it wobbled, like someone had kicked out the first brick in their perfect little wall. Nora showed up at the library steps at noon, hair wild, eyes glassy like she hadn't slept in a week. She handed me a folder. Got a tip. The fixer's been paying for this smear job with city funds. Traced a paper trail through 3 ghost companies. I blinked at her. Are you serious? Her grin was a savage, exhausted thing. You want to fight, kid? Here's your match. Burn 'em all. Dash 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 dot dot. By midnight, the new exposé was ready. The fixer's hush money. The forged clips. The hush-hush payments to the local paper that printed the headline calling me a fraud. But even with the truth in my hand, I felt that old fear scratch at my ribs. They'll never stop, I whispered, even if I prove every word. Nora didn't sugarcoat it. No, but they'll remember you wouldn't shut up. That's the difference between a ghost and a legend. Dash 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 dot dot. At 3 a.m., I stood in the station lobby while the servers uploaded the final video. My reflection flickered in the glass, hair tangled, eyes ringed with shadows, but still here. My phone buzzed. A single message from Tyler. Asterisk. You're really doing this. Even now. Asterisk. I typed out a reply, then backspaced it until the screen was blank. He already knew what I'd say. Dash 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 dot dot. When the piece dropped, the town broke open. Not clean, not neat, but wide enough that the truth had space to crawl out and breathe. The fixer disappeared, fled the town with his pockets turned inside out. The mayor's press secretary resigned at dawn. The local paper issued a half-baked apology, but I didn't read it. I didn't care, because I knew it wasn't over. That headline would still stick to me like gum on the bottom of a shoe. There'd always be people pointing, whispering, "That's the liar girl." But I'd walk past them, every time. Dash 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 dot dot. When I stepped out of the station the next day, the sun was a shock. So bright it made my eyes water. I saw Tasha across the street, her baby on her hip. She waved. I waved back. Maybe that was enough? Maybe that was everything. Dash 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 dot dot. But as I turned the corner toward the library steps, the place where I'd hidden, the place I'd found my voice, I saw the one thing I hadn't expected. Tyler. Sitting on the top step, hood up, eyes on the ground, like he was 13 again, and waiting for me to save him from a world that would always love him just a little bit more. When he looked up, I saw it, the same bone-deep ache I carried every day. "Lo," he said. His voice cracked. "I have to tell you something. Dash 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 dot."